in the car, chassis, chassis dynos, because a lot of these guys that are doing the Lucas Oil are doing the chassis dynos. They're doing the pull-down machines, so they have all that money to be able to do that. Here in the Northwest, we don't really do that. We just have the trial and error, when it comes to either practice day or track time. How much do you think going into a season, coming from a season they just came off into the new 2016 season in this brand new GRT is going to be your shock package and chassis, setup?
I think that's exactly all of it. I don't think the race car plays near as much part as everybody thinks it does. I think it's the quality of the race car driver and the knowledge of the race car and how the race car works and the relationship between the driver and the crew chief. In order to win races in any car, I don't care if it's a hobby stock or an open late model, you have to be able to make that race car do what you need it to do to win in a given circumstance on a certain track condition, and basically you have to have the knowledge and the tools, and the race car is just another tool. But if you don't have all the rest of the drawers in the toolbox full too, one ratchet's not going to do the job. You have to have everything else that goes with it.
Well, both of you guys are kind of killing me here because I'm getting ready to ask you a question, and Josh jumps in with the question I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask you another question. You kind of threw it out there already. I mean, really, when you break these cars down, you take the bodies off, take all the shocks, and you look at the bars, they're all so similar where the pickup points are. You might see some design, the bars are in different places and stuff, but you look at the pickup points, they're all so close. Scott Bloomquist has sold more race cars in this country than anybody ever has because he's won in almost every brand, whether it was Rayburn or Masters Built or any other brand he ever got
into. That's because Scott Bloomquist is a race car driver, and he is an extremely knowledgeable
But my point being on that was, really these race cars are all so similar. It's not the race car that brings the win. It's getting the setup and the driver in the seat.
Absolutely. It's a combination of all of it. You have to have all the pieces. You can't build a house with just a hammer. You have to have saws, and you have to have tape measures, and you have to have squares. The race car is just one of the tools to make a winning package. You have to have, like I said, you got to have the rest of the toolbox full or you're not going to get the job done. And there's some brands of tools that are better than others. I think so, but ultimately, like you said, the pickup points are the same. We're all on relatively the same suspensions, and it's all who knows how to tune them and who knows what to do when. And it goes back to what I was talking about the young kids earlier. There is a talent involved in it. You have to be able to feel what that race car is doing and drive it in certain track conditions. And what we deal with mostly out here on the West Coast is extremely slick conditions, and you have to be able to go above and beyond and feel what the race car is doing in order to make it do what you want it to, and know what and when and where and why. And if you don't have all of those put together at the right time in the right place, it's not going to work. And then on top of it, 50% of it's still luck. You gotta have Lady Luck on your side too. If she's not with you, it's just not going to happen, no matter how hard you try.
Absolutely. We were talking, like you said, we were talking a little bit, prior to, waiting for Corey, to come back from what he was doing. We talked to Darren Koff a little bit earlier, and I mean, this is a man that's been doing it for quite a while. Ever since I've been really little.
Darren's a veteran. I watched Darren when I was a little kid.
Right? Yeah, I think we all did. And we talked to him a little bit about what is it, what's his future look like? What is he going to do for the future? And he goes, well, he's talked about it. This year's going to be my last time, and hey, this is going to be my last car. And of course, it changes and it changes. We're talking about marketing and stuff also. And I believe it's a cool marketing, not only for GRT, but for Dragon Performance to have you on their side, driving their late model this year. You're talking about how, face-to-face, we can talk, right? And you're like, well, I'm not really, a huge spokesperson when it comes to marketing myself. Hey, this is what you said. Look, man, I can go ahead and get in that car. I can show you what I can do. I can go to the front. I can win races. That's what I do. That's who you are. But realistically, when it comes down to it, this is the whole reason why we do this. Moxie Media Promotions, we want to make sure that this year and years from now is the fans and everybody know who you are. This is just a 2% of who you are starting 2016. GRT's on board. Dragon Performance is on board. You are now part of that group. This is only going to be, a huge marketing point, not for you, but for them also. How do you take that in, knowing that this is going to be something that, people are going to look at because you are driving their late model and you're going to start winning some races for them?
Well, I hope I'm going to start winning some races for him. We've got it. You know, Corey was around a lot in the old time on the old track, and the way we raced it, the track was really, really fast, but it was really forgiving. And the new track's not. The new track's a momentum racetrack. You have to be after it all the time and hard on it. Even when it's slick, you can't slow down on it. And it really makes a thinking man's game out of it. You have to think to get around that racetrack and keep that race car under you, especially driving these missiles that we drive now. These cars they're so much faster than what we had 12 years ago when I was in a late model. You know, then we thought we were setting the world on fire, and you could go get one of those late models and bring it out now, and you wouldn't even be close to making the show with it. They're just so much faster and so much more power, and you know, we're on the same tire that we were on, but we've got so many more tools to go along with that. It's not even comparable to what it was.
Well, you kind of again killed a thought that I had there when we talk about the racetrack and how you race Willamette Speedway now as a driver in the cockpit. That wall around the outside has definitely changed the way you guys have to race the track. That being said, as fast as the old place was, the new track, we've seen the track records drop like, lead balloons. We're now down, we're pushing the 12-second bracket on a 1/3 mile with a dirt late model. Something I never thought I'd see at Willamette Speedway. Last year, John Duty in qualifying, 13:081. That is a phenomenal time on any third mile, let alone a dirt track.
That particular night that you're talking about, John Duty, his son Justin, Brian Cronk, and myself, all four broke the track record that night. And we had it down to a 13.2 and thought that we just set the world on fire. And then John went out and dumped another 2/10 off of it. We're like, there's got to be something wrong with the transponder. There's no way that's right.
Well, but the thing about that, too, was we saw track records fall in every division that night that was there. So, the track prep with Chris Knobziger and those guys at the track, they've really got it figured out with that wall and how to water it and the way it's changed. But it really has changed the way that you guys as racers have to race each other, because you can't just go it in like Wagner did, up on the top and back her in and let her ride. Now you've got that wall, and it's about
there's
momentum.
A couple of us that still, that's the fast way around it, and there's a handful of us that like to run up there, but you definitely, you really changed.
You're a lot more cautious about how you do it now.
A lot more cautious, and having the track entrance there, we don't pit in the middle anymore. We pit outside, so you enter the track right there going into turn 3, and you're riding the wall all the way down the backstretch, and then you've got a 60-foot section on corner entry, which is the most important part of the racetrack, that the track surface is different. So, you can have all the traction in the world up on the cushion and be hard on the throttle and wide open, but you've got a 60-foot stretch right before you get to that spot that's slick. And so you have to compensate for that, and you have to be able to drive around it. And if you're not ready for that, you're gonna find out that concrete wall doesn't move.
Absolutely. We were talking about Joey Tanner, the wild child, and we talk about how he drives and everything, and the maturity level from, when he started out in go-karts, and then just watching him, through the ranks, watching his dad, Joey Tanner, Joey Tanner out of the Portland Speedway. We kind of got some people playing out behind us. It's kind of cool. But we have Joey Tanner racing at Portland Speedway, and then watching Joey come up through the ranks, and the maturity level that he has now. A couple of years ago, he was the wild child. That's the reason why he got that name. He'd go in, he'd drive real hard, and or man child, I'm sorry. He'd go in, he'd drive real hard and stuff, and then, he'd come back and he'd be really cocky. Like you're talking about some of these young drivers and stuff, and the veterans have to come over and talk to him and say, hey, look, son, you can't drive, that wall's not going to move. You cannot pass me on that out. You can try.
Well, and you can't pass me on the infield and use me up. If you want to race me clean and I feel that you're faster than I am, I'm going to give you the spot. I'm not going to tear a race car up.
Absolutely.
But if you drive through the infield and shove me up out of the groove and leave a tire burn all the way down the side of my race car, I don't care if you're 14 years old or not. You're still going to get smacked around. That's all there is to it. I don't have daddy's checkbook buying race cars for me like you do. I have to work and earn this stuff, and you're not going to tear it up. If you're faster than I am, I will give you a racer's respect and give you the position. But these aren't derby cars, and if you want to play derby cars, well, I guess we can play dirty cars, but you're going to be a lot more sorry when I get out of the race car than you are on the racetrack.
Absolutely. We talked to him and stuff, and his car is sitting in front of us too. A beautiful piece of machinery. I mean, just very, very nice. And we talked to him about, the aggressive level from some of the young drivers that are coming up to some of the veterans. And, he said in the last couple of years, I've actually had to sit back, being out of the car and think about what I've done and the privilege I've had to be able to, have the things I have to go racing that some people haven't. Some people have had to work extremely, extremely hard to get where they're at now. He's had definitely, some of these young drivers have had the ability to get into stuff without having to work as hard, but have that talent to go forward, and they're driving some of these super late models and modifieds. And he even sat back, and took a deep breath when, during our interview, and says, you know what? He says, I look up to these veterans, and I have now got that mindset now that these veterans have taught me how to drive better and to be a better driver. Having that time off has kind of set him back to sit there and say, you know what? This is a learning curve still. It'll still be a learning curve, from here on in.
It's a learning curve when you're my age.
Absolutely.
And I've been in race cars now for 22 years, and I learn every time I go to the racetrack. And the kids, it's a lot easier for these kids to get in good equipment and learn in good equipment than to have to use hand-me-down junk and make their own stuff in the garage. And a lot of these young guns, they have so many more resources than I had when I started. But the very fact of the matter is we all race together every week. And guys like you've mentioned Darren lots of times, and there's a lot of other veterans out there, Rob May and John Duty, who you mentioned earlier. And these are guys that I've raced with my whole life. And, they're friends at the same time, and you treat your friends different than you treat an enemy, and your enemies treat you different than they treat their friends. And so at the racetrack every weekend, it's a lot easier to race and have fun when everybody gets along and plays well than when there's an outcast out there that everybody hates because this guy gets in a battle with this other guy because he doesn't like him. Well, 9 times out of 10, they're tearing each other up, and you get tore up too because you're a victim of circumstance.
I think Josh and I both know a little something about that, given the class that we race in. But that's a normal thing there in our class. But it's we're in such a transition period right now, and it's kind of a weird phase we're in the Pacific Northwest with some of the old guys moving on, ending their careers, and you got the guys in the middle like you and Joey. Joey's been in the late model 10 years. You've been there in the late models and the modifieds, and now you're kind of that next generation that the young guys are looking up to. But the young guys, we talked about the good equipment they're in, the good equipment because they are the generation from yours that you guys have produced, and they're doing their homework. That's the biggest thing. You guys have done your homework, you've learned it, you've passed it on, and now they're taking that homework and fine-tuning it. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. So it's been an interesting last couple of years. What do you expect in 2016 with just everybody and the excitement and the plans that everybody's got for the season? I mean, personally, what is Doug Davenport expecting from the 2016 season?
As far as for Doug Davenport Racing, I'd really like to think that we're going to be able to contend for wins every night. I think we have all the pieces to do that. As far as racing in general, the racing due to the economy and promotership and several different factors, late model racing in the Northwest has really fallen off in the last 8 or 9 years, and that was another part of the reason that I got in a late model is kind of to bring that back. They're a dying breed, and it isn't so much the economy, it's just the way racing is being ran in general. And there's a lot of guys that can win races and are going to promote the modifieds really well, and not that I don't want to do that. I love racing mods, I love racing any cars, but we didn't need more guys in the mods. We need more guys in the late models. We need to bring the late model count back up. You go ask any race fan up in the bleachers. You walk up there in the bleachers and you ask them, what's your favorite car to watch? And if they have some kind of relationship with a driver, they're going to say, well, I like so-and-so and he drives this car. But I like the late models. Everybody's there to see the late models. They're big. Yeah, absolutely. They're everything. They're the fastest thing there. They're the meanest thing there. They throw the most dirt in the grandstands. I mean, that's what everybody goes to see, and that's what I grew up watching. All my heroes as a kid, they drove late models, and we need to